it was always going to be easy for the US and Israel to start this war. Winning it or even ending it is another story. The chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Daniel Kane, indicated that he understood this as well, that start this war and who knows what could happen. He knew, as we all saw, what happened in the June war, that in the end it was Israel and the US that were pleading with Iran to call an end to it, and Iran agreed to do so. That kind of ending is unlikely in this situation, even though it seems as though that's the sort of thing that Trump still wants. He's amazingly still talking about coming to some deal, like a few hours after launching this unprovoked attack on Iran. And unprovoked it was. It's absolutely 100% a breach of international law for either of these two countries to attack Iran. An interesting conclusion from an international law expert on this matter in 2002, one Keir Starmer, said the mere fact that a country has a capacity to attack at some unspecified time in the future is not enough. That's not grounds to justify an attack. Of course, he was talking about Iraq then, and he wasn't the Prime Minister. And now he's, what were the words of Groucho Marx? These are my principles. If you don't like them, I've got others, because the UK is full on into this now. The whole pretext of this appears to be a belief that all it takes for Iran to be broken and destroyed is for a combination of these airstrikes and then this big popular uprising by all of these oppressed people who are desperate to get rid of their government and to have nice, harmonious relationships with the US and with Israel. It's what's called a pack of cards theory, that all you need to do is have these strikes, provoke a bit of unrest, do some decapitation assassinations, as they've done with the supreme leader, and then the whole thing will come tumbling down. And that's what the Americans and the Israelis need. They need this to be over in a few days, perhaps a week. And if they're unable to do that, if they're unable to get Iran to capitulate, to completely destroy Iran, and it moves beyond about a week or two, then they will be in serious trouble. They're clearly unable to sustain the attacks that they're launching, or withstand the retaliation from Iran. So the stakes are actually incredibly high in this now. Trump has gone all in. There were all sorts of reasons why he shouldn't have attacked, and there were some crazy reasons why he should have, and the crazies got into his ear, and he's sided with them, and he's moved beyond the point of no return. And this is either going to end with the severe degradation of the power and influence of Israel and the US, or a big reassertion of the US power projection and control over the whole world. Frankly, I think the former is more likely than the latter. My sense is that the US and Israel will not be able to sustain in the long term, or even the medium term, the sort of losses that they will be subjected to through Iranian retaliation. The shocking thing about all of this is not just that those two aggressor rogue nations with no regard for international law are carrying this out, but that all of the other kind of Western nations are following suit. The Five Eyes being the worst of them. I mean, Starmer's hypocrisy of having those principles against these unlawful strikes and then going along with this 100%. Mark Carney, who did his big public confession at Davos and admitted that these attacks that the West does, their economic sanctions, their military attacks, all of these concerted efforts against other countries are not for higher principles. They're to advance the interests of the rich and powerful. He admitted all that, and now he's going along with this. He's going along with this attack, even though Trump threatened his own country with the same kind of thing. So Carney is an absolute shocker. Albanese in Australia, another one of the Five Eyes, is also pathetic, following a long line of Australian just being bootlickers to the US. Every US war, whatever they do, whatever government, whether it's the centre-right or centre-left, they always go along with these sorts of attacks. And then you get New Zealand, which is kind of embarrassing and humiliating, because New Zealand actually has a bit of a history of standing up to some of these sorts of things. We resisted some of these things. We didn't take part in the invasion of Iraq. Helen Clark stood up against that. Before that, David Lange stood up against nuclear weapons in New Zealand shores. And here we've got the New Zealand government not only not condemning this blatant act of aggression and breach of international rules, but waiting to see what everybody else did first before they come out with this wussy statement. Just pathetic. It's embarrassingly bad. At least those other bad, immoral warmongers stood up and, kind of made a decision. New Zealand just simpered along, followed what they did, saw if it was all right to go along with this, the same as they saw first. Is it all right if we just say nothing about the genocide, if we just help the genocide? And they've just done that too. Not a word of condemnation, not a word of condemnation. They talk about the rules-based order. It's just, since Gaza, that whole concept has just gone completely out the window. The rules-based order, we make the rules and we order you to follow them. That's really what they're talking about. And that's what they do. They're big and they're strong and they're powerful, and they just attack, and they think they can get away with it. And they've been doing it for ever since World War II. They've been doing this dominant thing. You look at all of these interventions and so on. And since the end of the Cold War, the US has been just kind of dominating all of this and imposing itself everywhere. And all of those other countries have just been running along behind. No reason why to expect they wouldn't do this. If they're going to go along with a genocide, why wouldn't they go along with an illegal bombing raid? That's just what they do. The kind of really scary thing here is that if Iran does put up the level of resistance that it appears they're capable of, then what happens? What happens when the US tries to call Iran again and says, Israel's kind of needs you to stop because, they're running out of interceptor missiles and they're hurting too hard. Would you mind just stopping for a few months so that we can gather our strength again, get some more missiles so we can attack you more effectively later on? Would that be all right to do that? And Iran just says, nah, did that before, not interested in that anymore. We were having discussions before, and each time in the middle of discussions, you make out we're making somewhere, but it's clear you don't want to resolve this. It's clear all you want to do is just the military option, the destroy us option. So, no, we're not interested to stop. What happens? What happens if that goes on and Israel is then getting pounded and pounded relentlessly? You think they're just going to give up? You think Trump is going to give up? I think that there's actually a real serious risk that if that is the way things develop, Israel could use a nuke. Israel would use a nuke before it would surrender to to these attacks. And if Israel used a nuke, do you think any of these countries that are supporting this international illegal invasion and attack on Iran now, do you think any of them would speak up against it? I bet they wouldn't. I bet they wouldn't. They would all just go, Israel has a right to defend itself. They didn't want to do that, but they had to because they were suffering too much. And, you know, they're Israelis, they're Europeans, and we can't have that many Europeans all die. It's okay if hundreds of thousands of brown people die, but we can't have that many white people die, because so of course it was fair enough for them to use a nuclear bomb. That is actually the risk that we are facing. Unless something has changed substantially since June, and all the indications are that Iran is more militarily capable rather than less militarily capable. So the stakes here are incredibly high. And I think it's really important for countries, but people in those countries, particularly those allied countries that are supporting the US and Israel in this outrageous illegal war, that we all stand up and make it politically impossible for our governments to maintain their support of this indefensible war. This is Small World Geopolitics. It's a channel I've just started. If you like this content, please like and share and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.